What's up, guys? Coming at you with another episode of Shut the Punk Up. Tonight, I have a very awesome good friend of mine that I've known for a couple of years now. He lives in the free state of New Hampshire. He helps run one of the coolest buildings in the entire state that everybody needs to visit at some point, called the Shell. It's basically like a libertarian fraternity. I mean, he'll kind of like dive into that a little bit. But it's a pretty cool place. It's one of my favorite places to go visit. And he's also, in my opinion, the libertarian leading expert on Argentina, what's going on down there, and Javier Milei and all that stuff. So we're gonna like talk to him about all the cool stuff that's happening down there, and also everything else that's going on in his life, all the cool stuff. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring up my good friend Skot Scheller. Dude, what's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
What's up, man? I am so pumped after that intro, man. That was great.
Dude,
it made me want to get into a mosh pit.
Well, Pork Fest is in a week. We're definitely gonna have some mosh pits at emo night. So
yes. What day is that?
Thursday at the Pavilion.
Oh, yeah. I am 100% going to emo night for sure. I'm going to be partying it up.
Yes. So, dude, I guess like introduce yourself. I know I gave you an intro, but kind of like tell us who you are, what you're about, and what you love. Like, yeah, all good stuff.
Yeah. So I moved to New Hampshire in 2018. I was a Free State Project participant. I moved from Illinois, which is kind of a crap hole state, and during the pandemic, especially when everything started to get locked down, we wanted to create a space that we could be normal no matter how crazy the world got, no matter how crazy everybody was, how masked everybody was, and we could be normal. And in 2020, we started the Shell, me and a bunch of other free coasters out here, and we just been rocking and rolling ever since. We've had a lot of comedy nights. We've had karaoke with you. Yeah. And I know you hosted Lou Perez as well. We've had Robbie the Fire a bunch of times, discussions, debates, and a lot of parties. So we throw some really fun parties there. So it's a place where people in the area want to come up and hang out with some libertarians. People around the state can come and gather there. And so we started that, and it's been going strong for almost for 4 years now, because we started it during COVID apocalypse. Yeah, we had no cases of COVID, as far as I know, at the Shell, even though we are meeting multiple times a week in large groups from people from all over the world.
It's really amazing, actually. Like, you go into the Shell, and they have this gigantic map on the wall. And people will just go up to the map and pin where they're visiting from. And the thing's just covered in pins. It's incredible. It's really cool. Like, everybody from all over the country, if they come to visit New Hampshire and visit like with the intent of learning about the Free State Project, the Shell has to be on the top of the list for every visitor. right?
Absolutely. Yeah. When we got a nice party going on, it's really fun, or a meetup. It's great. And it's actually kind of funny because in New England, there's a million pins, obviously. Like there's not a spot in New England that it hasn't been covered. And the second biggest place is California. Like
Yeah, right.
we had like 1,000 pins from California. It's like everybody wants to get out of that state.
It's a
And
very long drive from California to New Hampshire, but I
yeah,
I am so thankful every day that I actually made that happen.
oh, me too, man. I got out before it got really bad in Illinois, but um, it's been a blessing, and I really enjoy it. And I got into Argentina like about 10 years ago because it's such a fascinating country, as you
Yeah,
will find out as we get talking here. It had a rags to riches story. And then a riches to rags story. It's like it's kind of like the Scarface. It's like
right,
poor to rich, then like you're dead on,
right.
you're dead and you got your gun and you're like, and fighting off the cartels. And that's basically where it is right now. So
Mhm.
it's a fascinating story. And I met I married an Argentine in 2016. I met my wife in 2015, and that got me hyperdrived on it as well, because it just like gave me an extra incentive. I always thought the country was so interesting, but gave me an extra incentive to watch what was going on. Her father is a PhD Austrian economist there. At the time, one of the few libertarians in the whole country, really. Definitely one of the few professors that was a libertarian. And I wouldn't call a politician, but he's an appointed person in the government. So it's just really it's really cool, that, and I've been following it, and I did not expect Malay to happen, but it is, even without Malay, it was a fascinating.
The world didn't expect Molly to happen. It really was like the perfect mixture of disaster and like luck, and it wasn't even really that much luck. It kind of maybe a little bit of luck, but like it was the perfect recipe for Malay, though, right? Right, like all the stuff
Right.
that built up to it and led up to it. There is a reason that he's there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it had to happen now. The other parties had to fail in Argentina. They had to have 230% inflation. They had to have one of the worst lockdowns in the entire world that devastated the economy. And Malay was the only guy talking against it. And it just, there were so many things that had to build up for Malay to get elected. And just 10 years ago, Malay wasn't even a libertarian. So
Right.
he's had this like incredible arc. So
Yeah, like his story is pretty wild. Like he's always been a very charismatic man. Like I've seen videos of him, like, even on like TV, and they were like from, within the last 10 years, most of them, but like he's like a very like fiery person. Like there's a lot of people compare him to Donald Trump, right? And like I don't think it's maybe a fair comparison, but like you can see why. It's because he's a fiery person. He always is snapping back at the media and calling people out on their bullshit. Like,
yeah, no, when he got on television, one of the reasons he stuck around and was so successful is he had no diplomacy whatsoever. And
right.
he would insult people, walk off of shows,
Yeah.
say the most vile things. As people say, people used to watch the shows for the insults, and then they would stay for the common sense, because he'd
Yeah.
be like, "You're a parasite," and the currency's worse than shit, and like all this stuff. He would call politicians parasites to their face. Taxation is theft. And like the most vile stuff, and way more vile than I'm even talking about.
Right.
And people would like be like, what is this crazy guy going to say? And then he'd be like, oh yeah, the government's printing a bunch of money, and that's why inflation's so high. And we can't have a balanced budget in this country. That's why we have to take on all this debt.
Right.
And he would always be talking about the corruption and everything else, and was
So
always right. Was
exactly
always
led
talking about what everybody wanted to hear. which
Yeah.
was the decadence that was happening in the country as it went from this beautiful, prosperous, and it still has a beautiful culture, but
Yeah.
country to one that was first in the richest country in the world, right up there with the United States, even almost to the 1940s, to a country that's 140th in the world now in prosperity, where people make a couple $1,000s a year, and everything is very expensive because because the economy is so closed. It's
Right.
just a really hard place to live, and the crime is outrageous, and the buildings are decaying, and even though they're beautiful. So it's just this weird dichotomy of beautiful culture and just crazy politics.
Right. And like I don't, it all happened like it feels like slowly and then all at once, right? Like it kind of just like that's how kind of inflation works. It's not like a overnight thing. It happens over time, and then all of a sudden it's way too bad to the point where like you can't correct it by just printing more money. Well, you can never correct it by printing more money.
Yeah, no, they've had high inflation since the 1940s. Actually, I mean,
That's crazy.
higher than
Wow.
we have the last few years on average is their inflation. They've had multiple hyperinflations. They had one in the 70s, one in the 80s. They had the worst financial crisis in 2001 in world history,
Oh,
like
wow.
devastated the country. They shut down all the banks and gave people fake money to because they gave them fake money, which is something they do in Argentina. They
They
like,
do that. Weren't they giving out free houses too?
yeah, because in their constitution, and then we can get into history if you want, but in their constitution, after the 1940s, they took this kind of fascist guy took over, Juan Perón, and he changed the constitution, which was very, very capitalist, very pretty libertarian. And they included that the government has to provide housing and food and all that sort of thing to people that don't have it. So the government does and ever since then, the economy is it's
Tank.
been
Yeah.
tanking. So there's a huge correlation. Ours was like the Federal Reserve. They got their central bank pretty later than us, but after that, it's been the economy's been, I wouldn't say in free fall, but it's been in decadence for about 80 years now.
Wow. Yeah, like so I guess like what was the perfect kind of recipe over those like last I don't know 15 years because Malay found libertarianism in the middle of all this chaos. And he grew in his, extreme beliefs and personal desire for freedom and liberty to who we see just a year or so ago winning a presidency in Argentina. Like who first of all, who is Malay and how did he get there in the last like he kind of, he's a personality for sure. So
Yeah, so he was born in the 70s. He's like 53 now, just to give you a reference. And in 1989, Argentina had a hyperinflation that hyperinflated the currency, it made it worthless. And Javier Milei was in high school at the time, and he used that to actually to get into economics. So he was like, "What is going on here? Like, this is just crazy," and it made him want to study economics. He was actually an amateur soccer player in Argentina, a goalkeeper, a pretty good athlete, and he got his first master's in Keynesian economics, which he never really liked that much. He never really got Keynesian economics as people talk about. It didn't really make a lot of sense to him. It didn't inspire him. So he got a second master's degree in economic growth. And that made him a little bit more like a neoclassical economist instead of a Keynesian. So he believed in markets, at least to a certain extent. He believed in more of a mixed economy. He had a few Keynesian tendencies for a while, and he became a very very pronounced professor. He published 50-page peer-reviewed papers. He got on the board of not the board, but became the chief economist of a major corporation in Argentina. And it was actually as a part of that corporation, he went to do a speech at the WEF, which we know as evil and stuff. But at the time, not many people knew about it in 2014. I didn't know about the WEF. Did you? But no,
Yeah.
not really. But he did a speech with the WEF, and leading up to that speech, he learned about the hockey stick of economic growth, where since 1800 or prior to 1800, there's essentially no economic growth in world history. It's like everybody lived on $3 a day, and every time that there was a little bit of an increase in standard of living, people would have more children, and it would go back down again. It was the Malthusian model.
Yeah.
And there was just no sustainable economic growth until 1800, until the Industrial Revolution, where we started to create things and build things with energy and build machines, and that accelerated economic growth, and just it exploded. And Millet discovered this after 2 master's degrees in his 40s. Crazy. And he didn't know that before. So that he was like, what the heck is going on? This doesn't make sense. All my neoclassical training doesn't explain this rapid rise in growth. And it was actually a student gave him a copy of Murray Rothbard's Power of Market.
Amazing.
And he was like, read that book by my Murray Rothbard, was just like blown away. He's like, everything I know is wrong. Everything I know is wrong. And soon after, a guy named Jorge Trucco, who I'm friends with, gave him the book Market for Liberty. And that made him an ANCAP. So he went from, in a short period of time, he went from like a neoclassical economist to an ANCAP. And if you know the Market for Liberty, it explains how basically an ANCAP society can happen.
Yeah,
how markets can solve all the problems of public goods, and all the functions of government can be done in the market. And
it's actually like a very similar story to how I found anarcho-capitalism. I was actually going into college as an anarchist, but I was going to college first for humanities, and I switched over to be an economics major. And when I was studying economics is when I found Rothbard and Ludwig von Mises and Bastiat and like everything that all these people, Thomas Sowell, all kinds of, like, I just started reading everything in this sphere. And once it clicks in your mind, it just never goes away. It's just there. It's crazy, but it's really cool because, I don't know, like going through all that stuff in my classes, like I can tell you, like I didn't learn a single thing about real life economy in economics classes in college. They like really are just guesswork. Almost all of it is just guesswork. There's not a whole lot of consistency with Keynesian economics at all. And I don't know, like I used the opportunity to talk to people, about it, but about Austrian economics once I found it. But ultimately it still has this like kind of like weird taste to a lot of people, especially like my economics teachers, like, oh, you're going to talk about Austrian economics? Like, can we just, can we just not?
Yeah. A lot of like neoclassicals, they want all these econometric studies for everything. Yeah. And the thing is neoclassical economics, and especially Keynesian economics, doesn't explain economic growth, like supply side or economic growth driven by increases in knowledge or technology. So learning how to make a computer, that's what happened. Because as Thomas Sowell says, and Millet brings up all the time, we have the same natural resources as we did 3,000 years ago. The only
Mhm.
difference between our standard of living and the caveman standard of living is the knowledge we bring to bear to those natural resources. So we discover how to do these things, and that's not really encompassed in in Keynesian especially. But
Mhm.
even neoclassical economics doesn't really have much of a role for an entrepreneur, an innovator, and everything. It's all this equilibrium. It's all this equilibrium nonsense. So it's just that's what Malay learned, and that's what he's trying to create a society in Argentina that actually focuses on people's human capital, what's in their brain, and allowing them to grow their own companies and create their own devices and not have the government destroy them with regulations and taxes. And that's his whole philosophy and how he wants to grow the Argentine economy.
Yeah. And so like in going into this, obviously the economy plays a big role in everything, but also culturally, Argentina had shifted quite a bit. And also you have the the major party in Argentina, nobody trusted at this point, right?
Right.
And so it really opened the door to him just to just walk in. And I don't know, man. Like I saw the videos of people like at his rallies and walking through the street. It looked like he was like the second incarnate of Jesus or something. People were like just loving it, you know. And I'm not saying that to be like sacrilegious or anything, but like it was exciting. It looked like the Ron Paul Revolution 2.0. Did it not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whenever I remember when I first started watching it, it was like in 2022 or 2023. It was every single time Malay would go out. It was like he would get mobbed, like tens of thousands, or like 10,000 people would be surrounding him. And the first time I saw it was in the southern part of Argentina in Terra de Fuego, which is actually a pretty kind of traditionally more statist province.
Hmm.
And like he goes to the biggest city there, and it's just like you be like as far as you can see, people there to see Malay. It was
Love
insane.
that.
And then it was just like everywhere he went, and I think it was just over time. It was Malay. It was like you have the Peronists, which have run the country for 80 years, and it was Malay. That was it. And he was the only one talking about how terrible the lockdowns was. He was the only one talking about inflation. If you listen to the Peronist, even as they had 230% inflation, it was like, oh, the economy's fine. We only have 6.2% inflation. Like you have 230% or 6.2% unemployment. No, but you have 230% inflation, and the people are getting poorer by the day. And it was just like Malay was the only one talking about how bad it was. And when I watched the debates between him and the center right party and the establishment party, it was like, what the heck? You wouldn't even know the country was going through this terrible
It's all
economic crisis
like a
if it
like a
wasn't for Malay being there. It
It's
was
all it was all drama, right? Like they're all putting this on for like people like I don't know, like TV essentially. It's literally all drama and they're just acting as if nothing is actually going wrong in society, right? Like and then you have Malay who gets up there and he's like, "You're all full of shit. Like everything sucks right now and it's your fault." And he was the
yes.
only person standing up on that stage calling it out. And you know, I don't know. It was exciting to go back through and see this man just like like you said, up to their faces and just be like, "Hey, you're full of shit. Like this is your fault."
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he's an unabashed anarcho-capitalist too. And even to this day, he says, "You think he's the president of Argentina?" But just today, they were talking. He gave or yesterday he was giving a speech to investors, and he goes, "The only bad monopoly is the state." to like as the president of Argentina is like the only bad monopoly is the state, and So he's a wild man, and yeah, both of the parties had to fail. The ruling party of the last 20 years, the Kirchners, had to get caught stealing billions of dollars from the treasury, and it just had to be discredited. If he would have ran in 2019, I think he would have done well, but he wouldn't have. He definitely wouldn't have won. So it just had to happen the way it happened.
Yeah.
And
So like question 2 is like there were, if I remember right, there were like a couple votes. Like he won this first round of voting. Was that just like kind of like a primary, or was like, did it knock out one of the parties and then there was just 2? I can't remember exactly what happened there, but
so they have this jungle system, and we have the primary process, and we do every state has a primary, right?
Right.
They do it all in one day throughout the nation, and every party participates. So, and they have 5 major parties in Argentina. If you watch if you look at their debates and stuff, all 5 of them were on the stage. I think if you were polling like 2%, you got on the stage to debate. So during this primary, Malay's party won. Malay won, and he beat the center right party, and he beat the establishment Peronist party. And it was a shocking thing because the person that wins the primary always wins the presidency. So it's like, what the heck just happened? They were predicting that Malay was going to get third in the vote, and he ended up getting first, and it just like blew the minds of everybody. I was watching at the time. I was like, I did not expect Malay to win, but when he did, it was just like, what the heck just happened? And he was the front runner from then on. And that really helped his campaign, because everybody's like, wow, this Malay guy can actually win. And
it's crazy. He's out there with like a chainsaw, campaigning with a chainsaw. Like I saw the one thing too where he's like walking down the board. Everyone's seen the video where he's like, gone, fuera.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, he's absolutely genius at publicity. And his sister actually helps him a lot with that. She's a genius as well. They come up with brilliant ideas all the time. Just genius publicity things all the time. And when he got elected to the deputies in 2021, which was a huge upset, by the way, at the time, he has a libertarian his party was newly created, La Libertad Avanza, right before he ran as basically a congressman in their lower house. He got elected, and when he got elected, he started to raffle off his salary to a lucky winner in his district or in his province. So everybody wanted to be a part of his email list, and because he would every 2 weeks he would raffle off his salary to somebody. And
that's amazing. That is
really, it was just a genius political thing, and without that, he wouldn't have gotten popular enough or well known enough to even run for president. So he just the whole way through, he's just doing genius political stunts. The chainsaw was great. And
was great, yeah.
Even as president, he's just so crafty and is outmaneuvering his opponents to a large extent. So it's kind of amazing.
Well, I'm gonna give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors real quick, and then we'll keep talking about because I love this stuff. So give me 1 second. Well, our first sponsor is the official Spirit of 1776 Blood of Tyrants wine. Are you looking for a nice night in while sipping on the blood of your enemies and enjoying the destruction of the tyrannical state? Look no further than Blood of Tyrants wine. It's a nice Merlot distributed by activists you know and love. BloodofTyrants.wine is the place to go. Use promo code FSM to get 10% off your first order. Yeah, go get yourself some Blood of Tyrants wine. They're awesome. They were at Porkfest last year. I don't know if they're going to come back this year, but I hope they do. I got their energy drinks last year, and they were great.
Wine and energy drinks, do they mix?
I mean, I don't think I would mix the two, but yeah, I don't know.
They need to make the first wine energy drink.
There you go. I mean, they do it with other kinds of alcohol, I think so.
Yeah, they do the Four Loko. Anyways,
but yeah, so now we're here. Now we have an anarcho-capitalist, self-proclaimed libertarian that's the president of a huge country. And this is the first time that something like this has ever happened in the history of the world. What has he been able to accomplish so far? Because I know that he still has constraints. And this is a slow process. It wasn't like a first day thing. Everything's going to change. And it certainly isn't going to fix it in 2 years. But what's he doing currently? And what has he been able to accomplish that he originally set out to do?
A lot, although nothing legislatively. He's gotten 0 bills passed through the legislature so far. So he's done a lot without the legislature, and he's been very sneaky with what he's been doing to accomplish his goals. And hopefully soon he actually will get a bill passed in the legislature. He's proposed some of the most libertarian bills ever created, ever proposed in world history. But when he got elected, he was able to use his power, which is a little bit, you could argue, maybe higher. The president has more power than the president of the United States. The president of Argentina does. And when he got elected, he was able to cut his ministries in half, and he cut the amount of political appointees in half. So all the afuera. Yeah. He's actually able to do that within the first few hours of his administration.
It's amazing. And how much did that shrink the size of the government?
He fired quite a few. I know, I can't remember the numbers, but they were all political appointees. So they were like secretaries, subsecretaries, people underneath them. And he just didn't appoint anybody else. So he basically I'm not going to appoint anybody for this position. So yeah. He just cut it in half, and it was
wasteful position.
It was in the thousands.
That's amazing. And they're all very wasteful positions.
Yeah. So
it's not like he was just cannon everybody. You know, he started off with the most wasteful organizations and ministries that existed, right?
Absolutely. He got rid of the Department of Education. He got rid of the Department of Women, Gender, and Diversity. He got rid of the Department of Sports and Tourism. He got rid of the Department of Culture, and he actually just got rid of another department within the last week. That's kind of the funny part. He's always, every week they're announcing something else they're cutting in the government.
Right. And how's that being received by people?
He's quite popular. He's the most popular he has been his entire presidency right now. And Argentina's economy is rough, so that says a lot.
Yeah.
And a couple other things he was able to do was it is hard to fire entrenched government employees, just like the United States. But the previous government hired a bunch of people. This is what they do. They hire their friends and their daughters and then Milei has a funny line about this. You might have heard it on the internet. He's like, the politicians first they hire their wives, then they hire their mistresses, then they hire their mistresses' families, and by the end there's nothing left for the people. And he always has funny stuff like that, like
that's
hilarious, pithy sayings like that. And
I got to give it to the man too. Like, he is always surrounded by beautiful women. What is going on with that?
Well, the women in Argentina are just beautiful. Just straight out, man.
I know you're
I don't know
biased
if
a
you I
little
don't know if
bit,
you've met
but
my wife, but like
I tend to agree with you though that like from what I see, like I don't know what they're putting in the water down there. It's a
they
good
they're
thing.
obsessed with beauty. Argentinians, especially the girls or the women, are they that's like it's very important to be pretty in Argentina.
So
So
what can we
all of them
do to
are fit
facilitate
and
Liberty Argentinans to come to New Hampshire then?
yeah, I mean,
There's a
and
lot of single men in New Hampshire that
oh
could use an
yeah,
Argentinian.
Argentinians are very picky though. They're it's a place where they have hookup tourism.
Oh wow.
And if you go to Argentina, it's like the worst place to go in the world because the girls are not like they're not number one. They're not really impressed with Americans. They kind of think we're
Mm,
slobs.
yeah.
They don't like our style. And for two, they're just you have to really get to know them and get in their social groups and etc. To even have a
To break
chance with
through.
them. And if
Yeah.
you're just going there, oh, I'm going to hook up in Argentina, it's like it's the worst place to go. And so it's Argentinians are awesome culturally, and they're so much fun. They have so much pizzazz,
They're
and
all firecrackers, aren't they?
yeah, it's so it's a great culture, and they're very proud. There's nobody more proud to be Argentinian than Argentina, and than Argentinians, and you can see that with Malay. He just loves Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
Argentina, he is risking his life literally because he loves that country so much. It's just so apparent in everything he does. So, and that's just typical of a lot of Argentinians, except for the corrupt ones that are just trying to plunder all the other Argentinians.
It's actually really hard to find any politicians in America that are that gung ho about our country.
Yeah,
But
it's they have a very it's like almost one. I mean, they have different regions and stuff, but it's like one very distinct culture. And
yeah.
so they have all these songs and stuff they do, and every single Argentinian knows the songs, and they sing the songs, and it's a fun place, and it deserves a revival, and I hope that Malay is able to deliver it.
And you had mentioned before too. It's something that like I've seen a lot of libertarians give Malay a lot of shit for. Just that he had done a talk at the WEF way back, right? So like, what do you know about that whole thing and like what happened there? I know that like he's been very outspoken against the WEF like regularly,
Yeah,
but like not everybody cares about that. Not everyone
right.
knows the context there. So
Yeah, the context there is he joined the WEF without knowing too much about it, and he wasn't a libertarian at the time, and is actually, if you watch the speech that he gave at the WEF, it was a speech that was pretty much anti-government. As he was researching this, it was a talk on demographics and growth, I believe, demographics and growth and stuff. And at the time when he was researching that speech is when he learned about the hockey stick. So he was going through his process of being a libertarian as that speech was going on. So once he got there, if you watch it, he was talking bad about the communists and the government workers and the government schools. So it was like they never invited him back. And ever since then, he's learned about their agenda, and he totally opposes their agenda. And his opponent, Massa, if you wanted the WF wanted somebody, that was Massa. That was actually Argentina is the poster child of the WAF. It is the elites live really well, and everybody else works. Everybody else is taxed to death for them. Everybody else is poor. It's exactly what the WEF wants. They want the elites to do very well. They want everybody else to basically be their servants. And that's Argentina. And his opponent, Massa, in the last election, his his solution to inflation, the only solution he ever gave was a central bank digital currency.
Hmm.
And he's talking about Malay, who wants the competition of currencies. He wants to basically have a free liberal currencies. Like all these countries are doing this central bank digital currency, and Malay's the only one that wants to not do it. He's he's a dope.
And honestly, Malay has stood up against that a lot. He's actually he's still in the process of trying to get the central bank down there dismantled. Correct. That's obviously not an overnight thing either. But
no, it wasn't even for Ron Paul. He wasn't like, we got to end it. We can end it day one. He's like, we got to phase it out.
Yeah.
The economy was in shambles. When Malay took office, they had negative $12 billion in foreign reserves, meaning they owed $12 billion of foreign reserves more than they had. They had negative. The inflation was it was hyperinflating as Malay took office. The central bank has had this Ponzi scheme they're running to. It is a Ponzi scheme that they're running that Malay had to unwind and is unwinding. They have capital controls. They have export taxes, import taxes.
Right.
Argentina is the very bottom in the world in economic freedom, and you see that.
Yeah.
You just cannot do anything in Argentina. It is literally like an economic prison. You can't export, you can't import. Amazon isn't there. If let's say you're a doctor and one of your machine breaks, as this is a true story, you can't get the parts to fix your machine, and you might go out of business and be ruined. It's the only people that can use the banking system are the political elites, and everybody else. The government lied about the value of the currency, and they couldn't use the banking system. So we're talking about an economic prison, and this economic prison benefits this certain group of people. The Malay calls them the caste. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Argentina, the last 30 years, they have the same businessmen. If you look at 30 years ago to now, the same businessmen. If you look at the labor union leaders 40 years ago to now, they're the same. Everything is the same. You're not allowed to start your own businesses or anything, because the government restricts it so much. And this is who Malay is fighting against. And actually, he's talking about one of the ways he wants to defeat them is basically bankrupt them. So they have extreme lobbying power. They have extreme just political power, and that's who he's fighting against. That's why he hasn't got anything passed through the legislature. That's why he's had to resort to cutting 50,000 contracts or 50,000 government workers that were within the last few years, were hired within the last few years. So he's done everything in his power to fix the situation, but all of the power, institutional power, is against Malay. But the people hate these people.
Yeah.
The people hate these people. When Malay calls them the caste, when he talks about how they're rich and you're poor, they listen. And that's what's going on in Argentina. And bring it back to the WF, that's the exact opposite of what the WF wants. They don't want people to have the freedom, economic freedom, to start their own businesses, to live their lives how they want to live. The WEF wants you to eat bugs and enjoy it and not own anything. And Malay's the exact opposite.
They want you to eat the bugs. That is for sure.
They want you to eat the bugs.
Well, that's great. So have you claimed your free house by chance?
Oh, man. I think in Argentina, one of the things that they do is they have like extreme squatter rights. And that's part of this. So if you don't live in a house. Let's like you have a vacation home
Right.
and somebody
Breaks into
breaks
it.
in and starts living in. They basically own your house, and if they, especially if they have a kid, you cannot get them out of your house. I know people
That
that
is
actually have.
insane.
Yeah, I know
That is
people that.
insane.
What rich people actually do is they hire people to live in their houses, and so
Wow.
this is part of it. They're like, oh, well, you don't have a house. They
That's
do.
crazy.
It's
So
something obviously Malay's trying to change.
I gotta ask, I mean, this is the title of the show. Is Argentina turning into Ancapistan? Like, what is the like? What do you think? Is this even a? I obviously I'm an anarchist. I'm also not utopian. I don't think
Yeah,
that there's any such thing as a perfect world situation that I would want to live in. Regardless, even I think minarchy is utopian. The
yeah,
closest thing I see that's at least trying to do that is what's happening in New Hampshire and what's
right.
happening in Argentina. Um, but what's going on there? Like, is Argentina actually turning into Ancapistan?
Well, if Malay's all of his reforms go through, it's going to be so much better and extra like number one in the world in economic freedom. If
Yeah,
everything he wants to go better, and the state will be reduced a tremendous amount. There'll be no central bank. You'll be able to choose the currency that you want to use, whether it be gold
Goldbacks
or
maybe.
yeah, gold backs, dollars. Dollars is what he talks about dollarization, but it's really a competition of currencies, and everybody just uses dollars there because the inflation is so bad. Everybody saves in dollars. Argentinians
Mm,
have the most dollars, like physical dollar bills,
wow,
outside of the United States. They have over $250 billion worth of dollar bills stuffed in their mattresses and stuff.
wow,
So yeah, outside the United States. So that's one when they talk about dollarization, that's because the dollar is viewed like gold there. It's what people use to save because they can't save in the peso because the inflation is so bad. And but his economic proposal is to have a like a Hayekian competition of currencies.
and obviously he's in favor of like cryptocurrency as well.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Super in favor of cryptocurrency. Um, so yeah, so that would be like a huge improvement.
yeah,
He wants to have free trade, and he wants to basically cut government regulations to maybe just and fraud and stuff. But the thing is, it's just there's a long way to go for that, and he's going to have a few good elections in the
yeah,
legislature to achieve this. So hopefully, his first bill that he brought out was the most libertarian bill in world history. It was the his omnibus law. It it deregulated it deregulated everything, and it did everything from like allow them to use weapons and self-defense. Argentina self-defense is basically prohibited.
wow,
It's wild. They like somebody, you catch somebody raping your daughter and you kill them, you're a murderer, basically, that sort of
that's
thing.
insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they'll be able to sue you and rob you for all your money, their family and stuff. So well, they wanted to change all that sort of thing.
Well,
And
I saw Malay getting elected as a huge white pill. Like to me, this was a very positive thing. At first, I was skeptical, like, who is this guy? Because I didn't know who he was. But I think at this point, people who don't know Malay or haven't researched him are just ignorant. And libertarians who have nothing to do but complain about him or nitpick everything he's doing, uh, those are the type of people that will never really be happy, anyways. So I kind of just write them all off. You know what I mean? Most of
yeah,
them. I appreciate you coming on to explain, you know, like all the things you know about Argentina, and we can definitely do like a follow up on this too, like what happens, as things keep progressing. Um, but like I think that like people need to kind of pay attention to what's happening in Argentina because it's not happening anywhere else in the world, and it really is like in my opinion, like like he's trying to be like a lead by example, and it's hard to do that in where he is because he can't get a lot done without the supporting cast. But I think that like him being there and the popularity he has, it's gonna help down ticket for people who care about freedom. He's gonna have people that get elected at the next cycle that want his bills passed. I feel very strongly about that.
No, his party, La Libertad Avanza, which was started in 2021 as a brand new party, it is the biggest party right now, and polling shows that they have almost
Amazing.
50% of the voters support
That's
that party.
amazing for a new
Yeah,
party.
yeah, it's like the Libertarian Party, and what in the region, especially the Spanish-speaking countries, you see his message really resonating. And in Bolivia, there is a La Libertad Avanza Party Bolivia starting,
Wow.
which Bolivia is Bolivia is a very poor socialist country. And in Colombia, they love Milei. And in Spain, he's a rock star in Spain, and they really love him in Spain. So all over the region, he's got these libertarian movements going, and the whole region, besides Uruguay and Paraguay, is socialist, has some form of socialist leader. There might be a couple, maybe Peru and Guyana, but everything else is pretty socialist. And so Milei isn't surrounded by a lot of friends. And some of the criticisms of Milei is his foreign policy.
Right.
But Milei, what he talks about over and over is a libertarian foreign policy. He talks about how he wants to be a protagonist trader. He talks about how they want to basically be a country down there in South America that avoids wars, that is able to stay away from the wars and what's going on in the world.
Well, people
forget over and over.
People forget that non-interventionism doesn't mean isolationism. You know what I mean?
Right.
We need to have relationships with other countries, and it's good for the world to have those relationships. We shouldn't be intervening in their politics, and we shouldn't be going to war or being the world police. And Javier Milei agrees with that. You know what I mean? Like he does.
He really does. He talked about he brought Zelensky to his inauguration. It's true. But he also brought Viktor Orban, who's Zelensky's biggest rival and who in the EU. So, and there's just over and over, it shows that he supports a very limited or foreign policy. So he's not some neocon. That's just nonsense. He's an Argentinian nationalist, libertarian Argentinian nationalist. Vivek would be proud that wants his country to grow, and that's all he spends his days on, is talking and thinking about Argentina. He works like 24/7. It seems like he doesn't sleep. That's the rumor. And he's constantly doing something with like talking about Argentina or tweeting about Argentina or giving us, an interview, or it's the guy never sleeps, honestly.
Well, and so to wrap up my thoughts on this, I'll let you kind of have like the final word on all of that stuff. It reminds me a lot. I wanted to bring this up of the Libertarian Party platform from 1977 here in America, which was 3 planks. And it said, regarding government: 1, we favor the abolition of damn near everything. 2, we call for drastic reductions in everything else. 3, and we refuse to pay for whatever's left. And that's kind of the vibe that I get from what he's trying to do down there. And I really like it. I think he's got the energy. Scott, wrap up kind of like what your final thoughts are on the whole Argentinian situation right now. Malay, and then we'll drop the news about the cool thing that we're doing.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So my final thoughts are it's amazing that people are so with Malay because his adjustment, he had the biggest spending cut in world history within a month. He cut 40% of government spending in a month, which has never been it's never happened before in world history. At least, especially coming off of war. Sometimes when you come off of wars, you cut obviously in the war. So, but
Right.
like it was the biggest spending cut in world history and the fastest spending cut in world history, and that's obviously going to cause a recession in your economy. And so the country is in recession. It is hard in Argentina. The inflation has decreased a lot, but when he got into his first month was 25%. So it's amazing that the people are staying with him, and he's even getting more popular as time goes on. And if he can get the economy turned around, which if he passes some of his laws or they can stay course, that's going to happen. Then you're going to see you're just going to see his whole agenda starting to come to fruition. Hopefully his next election will do really well, and you'll be able to see maybe this incredible Malay miracle.
Froze up a little bit. Well, okay, we're still live. If he comes back on, I'll put him back. But it looks like he dropped off for a quick second. And I'll just say this. I have known Scott for a long time. He's a really awesome dude. Anyone who comes to New Hampshire to visit has to visit the Shell. It's the coolest place. It's a libertarian fraternity, essentially. It's a clubhouse where all of its members pay dues, which contribute towards the cost of renting out the place. It's a really, really cool place. We are doing he just texted me. He said his power went out. That sucks. I'm sorry. Well, he did a great job. I'm stoked to have had him on. I'll definitely have him on again sometime. We are doing a event at the Shell through the Emo Caucus. And we're going to be doing a punk rock karaoke July 27th. It's a little bit ways out, but we've done one there before and it was a great time. And this time it's going to be even better. So we're expecting definitely a lot more people this time. And there's been a lot of growth since then. And it's going to be just a fun time. For the rest of you, anyone who is going to Pork Fest, I hope that you'll come to the Emo Hub because we got a very awesome week full of events. Like Tuesday night, I've got movie night. We're going to watch SLC Punk. Wednesday night, I'm doing new metal night, which is going to be sick. By popular demand, we'll be at the Pavilion again doing emo night on Thursday. Extended the time out just a little bit. This is the highlight of a lot of people's Pork Fest last year. Cool light show, great music. Last year we had mosh pits. I think that was probably the first mosh pit to ever hit Pork Fest, and I expect to see a couple more again this year. And then we're also going to do punk rock karaoke on Saturday, and really cool drink specials all week. Roaring 20s, happy hour, $2.20 to $4.20, half price drinks. It's just going to be a wild week. I am not even ready for how exhausted I'm going to be. It's a nonstop party, but there's so many good talks too. It's going to be good. So I hope you guys will, come by and come to Pork Fest. If you can't make it this year, go next year. And I'll be back again in just a couple of days with another show. So have a good one and enjoy your week.